to the Sales Problem Podcast. Here is the problem we are trying to solve. Every year you hit the reset button and you have to beat your numbers and grow your business. You have to get quicker, faster, and better. We are two guys trying to solve that sales problem, trying to help you grow by enhancing what you know about the art and science of selling and personal development. Along the way, we're going to interview some interesting characters and debate some different angles about this common business problem. So thanks for joining us. Let's get growing. Let's dive straight into episode number 1. I'm your host, Daniel Burns, and I am here with my fabulous co-host, Steve Comerford. Steve, how you doing?
I'm excellent, Dan. Good to be with you. This is
Excellent.
fun. This is interesting. This is new. This is exciting.
Absolutely. And we are solving the sales problem. So let's just dive right in. Today in episode 1, Steve, it's a great place to start. We're going to define what is the sales problem that we're trying to solve. So let's get into it. From your perspective, Steve, what's the biggest sales problem that we're facing? Why does it matter? And why should people tune in and listen to this podcast?
Oh, boy. That is the big question, eh, Dan? I don't know. You and I have been in this little arena for 20 plus years. I've been doing this upwards of 30 in and around sales, into marketing, and into training across the country, different companies, different types of selling, different people we sell to. It's always, I think it's a marathon. It's too often we look at, you have to, win the day, but it's actually many days and it goes over a long period of time. And so the problem is to maintain that level of performance. It is hard. And I think in the intro of resetting and always having to, you have to crank it up again going into the new year, or crank it up again going into the new month. I think that is forever the challenge. How about you? What do you see as the big problem?
Absolutely. Well, I love that you pointed out that, there really is no finish line. And like you said, I've been in this for 20 plus years, lots of different roles too, from door-to-door sales, selling copiers and postage meters, to sales specialist, to sales manager, to national manager. And it didn't matter what role I was in, Steve, growth is the common denominator. But I love sales in every single role I've been in. So I think for this podcast, it's great that we get to go on and talk about how to grow sales with the people that we're closest to. There was a saying when I first started out in sales, and it was, "The king is dead, long live the king." And that means you're a king for a month, you're a king for a day, because you can be number 1 on the board today and down to 0 tomorrow.
And I've been at 0 to 0. Yes.
I've been at both sides of that coin. So the challenge is always the same. We have to grow. So why does it really matter? Because if you're a sales manager, salesperson, CEO, CFO, it doesn't matter what position you are in any business, we all have that same responsibility to grow our sales. And so I think there's 2 words, that really stand out to me. We're dealing with sales people. And there's 2 parts of that word. There's the sales part, and then the second half is the people part. So if we think about sales, how do we create sales growth? We could focus on the first half of the word. 50% of it is sales. So we've got things like Salesforce. We've got sales techniques. We've got sales scripts. We've got sales data. We've got all kinds of sales metrics we could look at. But if you look at all the different podcasts, the books and things, a lot of them do focus on that. But I think the second half of the word, which is people, that's who we're managing. That's who we are. We're all people, and people are complex. So if you want to grow your business, I think.
Yeah, I jump on that, right? Both of us have been up and down the road, but we also have to manage teams. So there's a different perspective from those different angles. I think that's pretty important to point out.
Yeah, and if we can help grow,
and I'd say, yeah, go ahead.
If we can grow the people, we can grow the results. And personal growth is the thing that you and I, everybody listening to this, that's the thing we're in control of the most. So I think it was Mother Teresa said, if we all sweep our own doorways, the whole world would be clean. So when we think of that, what can I do? What am I responsible for? How can I hit my goals comes down to how do we get information out to people on things like their mindset, on improving their inner game, their own self-awareness, their own self-improvement. And if we help the people grow, we're going to help the businesses grow.
I did not know we were going to quote Mother Teresa. I gotta get up on my quotes.
It's all about personal responsibility, personal accountability. So if you're listening and you're ready to take personal responsibility, we're going to help you grow on this podcast. Steve, let's segue over to segment number 2 of our podcast.
I like
a little bit of storytelling. Yeah. Let's get into, when we dive into the meat of things, when we get out there and we are in the battle, want to talk about some train wreck stories that you've had, and then we'll talk about some triumphs. But, it's all well and good to talk about it, but then you go and you get punched in the face by the sales gods. And I want you to tell our listeners a time where it was supposed to work out perfectly based on some of the sales techniques that you thought you would use, but it didn't turn out that way. It turned into a train wreck.
I was thinking about this one, and I'm going back into the years gone by. So back when you and I were together, right, and on the same sales team, it was right. I was managing the team. You were a rep on the team. We had pulled together a pretty dynamic group of characters. We were doing extremely well. Business was good, trucking along, first place in the country. We even had our own T-shirts. Showed up to the sales conference in our own T-shirts. And then, poof, as you said, the sales gods come along. They say, no, we're going to take this segment of business away from you. And you can just sell this part, which we didn't like selling that part. We really enjoyed selling the other part that they gave away to somebody else. And it's like, what am I going to do? It just, destroyed me, but then it was like a ripple effect on the team. I don't know if you remember that time and place, but oh man, talk about a train wreck. It was
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my train wreck. I'll continue the story in a little bit when we talk about, then where did it go right? But that I'll leave it right there when things just are out of your control and you have to wake up the next day and figure it out. But that was a hard one to figure out. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Yeah, we're not in control of how the business changes. It can take twists and turns and it can catch us off guard. But what we are in charge of is, okay, now how are we going to respond now that piece gets taken away?
Yep. So in your years and traveling the globe, what about you? What was your train wreck?
I could probably talk for a few hours on train wrecks because I have had quite a few. But the one that absolutely stands out to me, and you may remember this because you had just hired me. I was wet behind the ears, didn't know what I was doing, but I was fresh into selling. And I call this story the 10 benefits of metered mail. Because when I first came on, that's what I was selling, a little postage meter. And I had sat down and memorized this flip chart that I had to go through with customers. And it was the 10 benefits of metered mail, which was great. I mean, sales, when you boil it all down, you got to get the benefits across. But I was a rookie. So week number 1, it was just get out there, knock on some doors, get comfortable with going through the door, try to kind of gather some information. So I remember I got dropped off in an industrial park and I just started knocking down doors. Didn't know what I was doing, completely uncomfortable. But I went through, I got some business cards, I collected a whole lot of no's. And then the next week came around. Again, I went and practiced in the boardroom this 10 benefits of metered mail. And I thought I knew it cold. I thought, okay, you know what? When it's my turn, I'm ready to put this on the table. So back out I went, knocking on doors. And again, just thought, you know what? Gather some information until I walked through this one door. And I'll never forget, the lady said, you know what? It's great that you came through today. We were actually talking about a postage meter. I said, you were? I said, do you have time to learn about the 10 benefits of metered mail? Yeah, come on in. Well, as soon as I walked into the boardroom, panic set in because I was not sure if I was ready to do my pitch. Got into point number one and I'm shaking like a leaf, Steve. You know, I'm wondering if they're buying what I'm selling, but I got through number one, benefit number two. I got to benefit number three. And here was the thing I wasn't prepared for. They challenged me. They just simply asked a very logical question. And I got so flustered. I didn't know the answer. And I just folded up like a lawn chair. And I remember I looked at them and I said, look, you know what? I'm only a week on the job. I don't think I really know my stuff. I folded up my day timer. I said, I hope you'll let me come back someday. And I bolted out the door back to the branch. It was a complete train wreck. But I think, you know, everybody's had a sales call that they've absolutely flopped on, right? But I think two things came out of that for me. One is, you know, you can wait until you feel ready. And you might be waiting a whole long time, you know, to really feel like you're ready. I thought I was ready, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. And then the second thing that stands out to me about that is, you know, it really takes courage to go out there and fail. And anybody that's listening and has made a call and got punched in the face, hey, you know what? You're in the ring. You're doing your thing. It takes courage to go out there and fail. That's my train wreck.
Nice train wreck. I got chased out of an office by a dog one time. Talk about walking into doors, you know, unexpected, and you have to get used to it, right? Anyway, I walk in this one door, you know, it was open. It was like yourself, right? In an industrial mall setting. I walk in and it's pretty quiet. There's nobody around. So it's like, hello. And this woman comes around the corner. Get out of my office! And all I hear is the paw prints of the dog chasing me out of the door, and a rah 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 rah. And I never went back to that place ever again. But
we just flipped it around.
That was the top of the level. So anything better, you know, anything under that level of you know, attack. It was a piece of cake. I've been kicked out of a few places. No soliciting.
That's awesome.
No soliciting. Yeah.
It's anyway, not. Funny. It's not the sales gods. It's the sales dog. Just yes. Backwards. So tell us, Steve. Tell us when it went right. I mean, you know, there's going to be people listening to this podcast who are on their way to a door. Tell them about when it went right. What's the triumph stories?
Well, I'll continue my story from before, right? So the train wreck. I think in sales you have to embrace change, right? The winds are going to change. The direction of the company might change. The customers change, right? There's constant change throughout your tenure in your career in sales and in your territory or your portfolio of accounts. And I'd say that this is the epitome of it, right? That I think I understood what was happening. You had to respond. You had to dig into the business and figure out how to do it. And it took a little bit of time, couple of nights, a couple of drinks at the bar with the team, a couple of heart-to-heart conversations at the coffee shop. And then it was, okay, so what do we have? And it was shifting back to the line of business that we had to sell, right? So we had built up numbers for the year. We were ahead of, any other team in the country. So we had to shift. We didn't get too much of a quota relief. That would have been nice, but we didn't. So we just shifted to the other set of business, other categories of business, became experts, right? So we did a lot of learning. We dug in, understood what the sales value proposition was for the different groups of products that we could sell. And then we just regrouped the team. Again, had a good group of people to sell with. And we all bought in on the program. And then we had, at the end of the finish line, at the end of the marathon was President's Club. So that was the focus. We built little, build up meters in terms of how much business we were bringing in and if we could hit the goal. And then lo and behold, guess what, right? We end up at President's Club drinking no, it wasn't margaritas. What do you drink in Hawaii? Something.
I drink sake.
Drink. I don't know. Okay, sake is a good Hawaiian maybe drink. I don't know. But celebrated on the beach. It was good. Team was there, and we knocked it out of the park. But boy, oh boy, learning process in that one is to embrace change. And ever since, right, that was probably 20 odd years ago. But ever since, right, it's just to embrace that change. It's going to happen. Get ready for it. And, maybe take the hit 1 or 2 days and then shift on how you have to kind of battle through and win the day. And I get back to my first point around, the sales problem in terms of the length of the game, right? The marathon that you have to run is that you have to suffer the body blows, get up and keep going. So that's my story. I loved it because it was such a nice success story, and I learned a lot from it as well.
I love it. There's just tons packed into what you said there. And, I like that you had to pivot. I like that, it's about getting the whole team on board, everybody kind of pushing in the same direction. And you're right. You have to adapt. Part of growing is adapting. It's not always going to look the way we want it to look. And you can have a little pity party for a couple of days because somebody moved your cheese. But at the end of the day, okay, which direction are we all headed in? And get back on the horse and keep riding.
Yeah, one of the best books I ever read was Who Moved My Cheese. That was, and I think that was around that time or later afterwards. So I had lots of stories to fill in for that one. How about you? So how did you turn it around? What worked well?
Yeah, I can think about a deal that was, triumph for me. I think it epitomizes what I love about sales. And, that's the whole reason we're doing this podcast is because we love sales. And when you win a deal, when you get that whale and you're reeling it in and you get it up to the deck, I think that's really what sales is all about. Is there anything more exciting than that other than maybe generating some great leads? And I can remember one deal I had with a hotel downtown, and it was for photocopiers, and it was a $200,000 deal. Now, at the time, $200,000 was a ton of money. So $40,000 was my quota, Steve.
Yeah, so I was going to say five times your quota.
5 months worth of my quota. So, that was going to help me make budget even when I wasn't making budget. So I was, I had my claws into this one, and sometimes you get that feeling. You get the feeling like I'm on to something. You get the feeling like you're building the rapport and it's going somewhere. But I do remember that no one else in the world, Steve, believed that I could land this deal but me. Everybody else thought it was, the big fish that you'd never get on board. And our sales cycle was typically 2 months, and there had been about 6 months that have gone by. So I'm sitting with my sales manager, and this deal has been on my forecast. It's come up every single meeting. Okay, where are we going with this? Is it closing? And, I could look into his eyes and see that he just wasn't buying what I was selling, that this was going to land. And, I knew he didn't believe in it. But, for me, I got to stay the course. I got to go after this. And the day that it closed, I mean, that's the day where you love being in sales. That's the day where you walk in with the signed, agreement that puts you at the top of the sales board. They put the crown on your head and you get to stand there like, yep, I'm the king for a day. It didn't last very long, but it was that moment that I love about sales. I was never, a star athlete on any of the teams that I played on, but, in sales, when you reach that number one spot, that's like being the star quarterback that just threw the touchdown in the final game. And, you're completely in control of that. In sales, it's your world. If you believe in it. So the message and the takeaway from this is, if you really feel like there's something there in a deal, don't give up. Don't listen to the naysayers. Believe in the unbelievable. Sometimes no one's going to believe it, but you stay the course, keep going. And when they put that crown on your head, you go, yep, should have listened to me. You didn't. Maybe you'll trust me the next time. But sales is all about those moments.
See, I would have been the guy beside you going, I'm going to knock that thing off his head. Therein lies the competition in the sales pit.
So, Steve, let's segue to the last segment of our podcast. And, one of the practical things about getting knowledge is that you have to use it. People read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, but here's the challenge to our listeners. Here's the last segment where we give you a little pearl and we say, today, when you're listening to this, go out and use this information. So it's called the power question. And the reason why we call it the power question is because in sales, questions are powerful. Ask a better question, get a better answer. So we're going to give you 2 questions you can go out, try to work into your day today, sometime this week, but take the information and put it into play. Steve, what's your power question?
Oh, Dan, power question. I think the heart of what I think moves deals and helps close sales is understanding the motivation of a buyer. What makes them tick? What makes them successful in their role? Just in so many different areas of business that I've been involved in. When I haven't understood that, when I tried to push the agenda, when I tried my agenda, right? I had products to sell, and you're going to buy these if I have my way with it. But I never understood exactly what the other person was thinking, or what, how would I make them successful? And I think that's the heart of the question. So I don't really have a magical, here's the question you need to read out, but I think it's something along the lines of, how can I make you successful in your role? So if it's a business owner or a business manager or whomever is doing the decision or making the, signing the paperwork, how can I find out? It's not a question. It's more of a digging. How can I find out what motivates that person to make the decision? I do it in my own, if I run into a good salesperson, if I'm looking for a car, or I have to go out and my oven is busted, and so I have to go out and look for a new oven. But if I run into somebody that really understands is what's motivating me to make that decision and what's important to me, I think that's what really gives you a leg up in the competitive world that we're in. I hope that answers your question, Dan.
It does. It does. I'm smelling what you're cooking here, Steve, and understanding the buyer is important.
Help me with that. What's a good question to ask in that one?
So I'll build on what you're saying. I think,
okay, build
the
on
question, The question that I would use is one that comes from coaching. And in coaching, they teach you not to relate because we tend to see things through our own paradigm. And in coaching, you really want to see things through the eyes of the client. And I think that's where you're going with this is understanding the buyer means seeing it through their eyes. So, for example, if they say, okay, you know what, I need a low price. I think a lot of us would assume what low price means to us. So we're going to say things to ourselves like, this guy wants to save money. This lady just wants to lower her costs, or she just really cares about the best price. But if we ask a clarifying question, okay, so what's important about that? Then we get them to clarify exactly what it is that's important. And I think a lot of times in my career, I've asked that question and I got a response that was different than what I thought it was. So, it might be, I've got a couple kids, I'm putting them through college. So you know what? Every dollar matters. I'm looking to invest in a second location. So I'm really trying to kind of save money so I can expand my business. Sometimes it's my business is struggling. I got to watch every dollar because I'm not doing too well. Not everybody's going to tell you stuff like that, but it might also be things like, you know what, my accountant told me to lower my expenses. So when we say what's important about that and we try to get beyond the first thing that they're telling us, we kind of lift up the rug and see what's under the rug. I think that's a great question to try to get to what you're saying, understanding what they're really trying to tell you or what's really motivating them. And that would be my question, the power question. So another important thing to add to that, Steve, is just that I was
going to ask you that. What else?
It's important you don't frame it as a why question. So what's important about that is designed specifically that way to ask it that way. When we say, well, why does it matter to you? We want to remember that people have been traumatized by whys. Goes back to when we were kids. Why didn't you clean your room? Why did you get that grade on the test? Why didn't you study harder? Why didn't you take out the trash? There's a lot of why questions. And when we ask whys, people tend to get defensive. So small little point, but this is the art and science of selling is just changing a single word. What's important about that? Sets it up so that you might get a bit of a different answer.
Interesting. Maybe not asking the client why, but I think in a lot of the instances, asking yourself why. Why is that not going in the direction I want it to go? Why are they not getting back to me? Why are they not moving forward? I think maybe is there a spin on why that maybe is more internal to understanding what you need to do next, or how you can improve your next move in that case?
Yeah, I think asking why internally, that can work very well, and we should all ask ourselves why sometimes. It takes some practice too, Steve, to get that what inserted and figure out how you ask a powerful what question. But it can shift everything. You can get a completely different answer. So that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Remember to subscribe, to like, to hit that bell button so that you get notifications for our latest episodes. If you have any questions, please contact the Sales Problem Podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to share this with your friends. Remember, the best way to grow your sales is to grow yourself. So keep tuning in. Listen to this show if you want to grow. Welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast.